Sure.
Okay. We are now streaming live. Let me just make sure that we're coming through. I think I can see someone there. Juliana, hi. Thanks for liking the post. I can see that we've got a number of people tuning in. I'm going to get everyone to jump in. And so if you're jumping in live, guys, drop me a hashtag live, or drop me a hello, or drop me a thumbs up, or drop me a smiley face, whatever you want to drop us. Drop it in the comments below to let us know that you're listening in live. I am super excited. Extra excited today about our live guest who is joining us. Just want to make sure that hi Jara, or Jara. I know that I asked you this before, that I pronounce it right. Melinda, love the heart eyes. Brittany, hi Brittany, how are you? I hope that you're doing well. But yes, we've got lots of people tuning in, and Brittany's saying, welcome back, Ashley.
Right. Yay.
Because Ashley has been away for a little bit. Hi, Jennifer, because she had a baby. And oh my gosh, she's so cute. So we are going to dive in, and I am super excited about today's guest. So thank you so
Thanks,
much
Donna.
for joining me, Miss Ashley. And I'm going to dive in and talk a little bit about who you are.
Sounds good.
So I can definitely see that we've got a lot of people tuning in. Just give it a few more couple of minutes and we'll dive in. Oh, Brittany, I'm so glad that you're amazing. That's awesome. And okay, I think that we can dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Dana Kay, your ADHD health practitioner, and I am super excited, as I said before, to have Ashley Gobeil, a child and family therapist, with me today to talk about this very important topic of parenting children with ADHD. And she's highly experienced. She's a highly experienced therapist with over 15 years experience. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's in social health and counseling, a master's in social work qualifying. Oh my gosh, it keeps going on and on. She has also completed a range of certifications of family therapy, developmental trauma, attachment theory, and so much more. And she works in a variety of contexts, including childcare, schools, child and adolescent mental health, domestic and family violence, family divorce, and childhood trauma. She has specific experience with children who have been given the diagnosis of ADHD, ODD, and learning difficulties. But I'm going to add to her very long list of qualifications, and probably the most important thing, in my opinion, she is our resident family therapist as a part of our program, the ADHD Thrive Method for Kids, where we work with families to reduce ADHD symptoms naturally. And everyone working in our program gets to meet with the lovely Ashley every single Wednesday evening in our parent therapist group coaching call.
Yes.
So welcome, Ashley. Hello. I'm so excited for you.
Hello. Thank you for having me today. And it's good to be back.
I know. And as I said, Miss Ashley has been on maternity leave because she had her first little baby. How's she doing?
She's doing well. So 4 months now. Goes by really quick.
It so does. Oh my gosh. And we're going to just dive right in. And we actually put out a post on multiple social media channels during the week about questions for Ashley. And so I've got those questions that were popped onto all of those posts. I'm going to leave off the last names for confidentiality purposes, but we are going to Ashley's going to answer those questions now. And if you guys have any other questions, Brittany's saying you are absolutely fabulous and give great techniques.
Thanks, Brittany.
So we're going to dive into these questions. And if you've got any other questions, we're going to hopefully come back to those afterwards. So drop them below in the comments, and we'll try and come back to them towards the end. So the first question that Michelle and actually others mentioned as well was when you have several children with ADHD with different presentations, so like inattention, hyperactivity, or combination, how do you take on the task of building toolkits for each child? We know they will likely need their own unique strategies, but man, is that a daunting task?
Yeah.
We need help now. How can we get a win? So I'm sending that one over to you, Ashley.
Okay, yeah, does sound like a really daunting task. So I guess it's got me thinking about a few different ideas. So that was for Michelle, was it, Dana?
Yes.
Michelle, and others as well, I'm sure, if you've got more than one child in the home that has different presenting needs. So I guess in terms of the practical toolkit, when we think about ADHD and those who've joined parenting calls in the past, we talk a lot about the nervous system and how that presents for kids who have ADHD-based symptoms. And we know that it sits within a hyperarousal state. So a lot of those presentations Dani mentioned, whether that be inattention or hyperactivity, impulsiveness, for children who might tend to move towards that screaming or yelling and those big meltdowns that we see, those really tricky behaviors, that often still sits within that hyperarousal state. So I guess in terms of thinking, Michelle, around how do you kind of zone in, yes, they're going to have individual unique needs, but it also had me think about how do you also find the similarities? So it does become a more tangible, achievable task to develop those. So if we think about all those presentations falling under a hyperarousal based nervous system state, we then would look at what might be those practical skills, tools, strategies that you can use with your children that all sit within that hyperarousal realm. So anything that, soothes, supports the nervous system, helps them find grounding, centering, calming based, whether that be body-based, sensory-based activities, might be a nice place to start. So thinking about what are the similarities, what are the different tools that I can use with all of the children? And then it might be teasing out what might be their individual needs. So for instance, some of the individual needs, and Dana, based on your experience, you might know as well, is that you might have one child who needs more containment or more boundary-based needs, or knowing how to, wait or be patient. You might have another one that, might run away when they find it really difficult, and they might go hiding somewhere. So what are the differences as well? So, and I don't know, Michelle, I would even start with just having a little, we call them feel better boxes, maybe actually doing a craft day as a family, and everyone gets their own little special box. They can decorate it, and inside of there has, different tactile, and every kid, because they are a little bit different, one might like that soft fabric, one might want a little bit of Play-Doh, one might want some clay. Is there something in there that they can smell? Are there little feelings cards I've used where we've laminated different ways, of feelings that they can have in there? So it's kind of any, bubbles, feathers, things that use all the sensory experiences, smell, touch, sound, and your children best. And anyone listening, you're going to know if your child doesn't like things to touch or smell, what their favorites are, and anything that's going to really soothe that nervous system. So maybe they have their own individual box that gets put in their room that you can encourage them to go to when they're having some of those more lower level ADHD based symptoms.
And what are some of those lower level symptoms that you're talking about?
So it would probably be when they're not in the that really big fight mode, which
Yes.
we've talked about with parents before. So if you've got little Johnny, who's having a really big meltdown, having a really hard time, and he's in screaming and yelling and finding it hard to be safe in his body, that's not the time to suggest going to get his feel better box. That's going to be a much different practical, approach. So I guess in terms of the little toolbox, it's kind of when they're maybe at that more 5 out of 10, maybe you're noticing they're finding it hard to focus. Maybe you're noticing they're fidgeting. Maybe you're noticing they're finding it a little bit hard to share. Do they need to go take some space? That positive, taking some space in their little calm corner in the home, and they know they have the toolkit to go in and look at.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Can we maybe take that one step further and look at what happens if they're in that state of arousal when they're really
Having a big moment.
having a big moment? Because, I think what Michelle's asking is, what she's got a number of kids that have ADHD. One might have those major tantrums where they hit and they punch and they scream. Another one might have that, the anxiety. So how do you work those differences out?
Yeah. And I guess that would be the next part of my answer, would be that the parenting approach will be the same. And I think it can be really overwhelming. Michelle, when you do have children with different presentations in the home, as Dana was just explaining, but in terms of your parenting approach and what we would recommend from a therapeutic, from that kind of perspective, is your parenting approach and your foundations will be the same. So, working on those concepts, of your parenting responses will be very, very similar for the boy, the child who's having the big meltdowns, or the child who's running and really anxious. So that will look like that tuning in with our body. So I know we've talked a little bit about this on our parenting coaching calls, is using our, neurological wisdom of our breath, our calm voice, our breathing, making sure we're really regulated as a parent, using lots of over-the-top empathy we talk about. So really naming your child's feelings. So that name it to tame it concept.
Can you expand a little bit more
Yeah,
on this? Because a lot of these people tuning in today haven't heard
new
you
to
talk
it
before.
So that is I can see that you're feeling really angry. So really verbalizing out loud, Dana, is that, what feeling you're seeing, what you're noticing in their bodies. So for that fight mode, one difference in approach might be, if you have a child who's, the kicking, screaming, is actually noticing what they're doing. I can see that you're kicking and having a really hard time. I really need you to be safe with your body. So it's okay to hold that parenting limit alongside of the empathy, the naming the feeling, and being there with them to ride that wave of emotion. If it's more that anxiety or the running away, again, same thing around naming the feeling. I can see you're really worried, or, I'm wondering if you're feeling really sad today, or I'm wondering if you've got a little bit of nervousness in your tummy. For both, using it as an opportunity to help them understand and teach what might be going on in their body. So going, do you notice if you're clenching your fist? Do you notice if you feel warm? Do you feel really angry? And using it as that teaching moment to get them to tune into what's happening in their body as well. And the first part of that, Donna, is for us as the parents and the adults to first give them the language around that, and to first help them notice. So it starts with going, I can see you're clenching your fists. Whew, we're now stomping our feet. We're really angry. I can see we're angry. I need you to be safe in your body, but I can see you're angry, you're hurt. You might even take a big breath as a parent, as I said, to use that beautiful wisdom, because our body, from a neuroscience perspective, research shows that our body can actually regulate our children's bodies as long as we're calm, which is easier said than done. There's probably parents out there going, it's really hard when your kid's screaming and kicking at you.
Totally. Yeah. But Ashley, can I say that, just the way that you're talking, I feel calm, I feel relaxed. And so I can totally see that just by regulating how we're talking, how we're breathing, has such a dramatic effect on our children as well. So
huge. It's that difference between going, I need you to calm down, stop, you're doing too much, that kind of parenting, response that we can all fall into. Or, I need you to get along with your brother, can't you, versus, okay, I can see you're having a really hard time sharing. It's really tough. I know you really want that toy. Still not getting that toy because I've set that limit, but it's really hard when you can't get what you need or what you want. Is there something we can do together to help ourselves feel better? One thing I'd even add, Donna, is with those toolkits, if you do have a little feel better box, and you start working on them at home with your children, is those are best done initially in relationship. So actually sitting and doing the bubble breathing with your child, or the feather, or, weighted blanket, or cuddling them and rocking them, whatever they enjoy physically or sensory, is initially doing with them in connection time. And then eventually, you can encourage them to do that on their own. Definitely. And that really does help support that co-regulation experience.
But also it builds that relationship, doesn't it? And so, I talk about a lot, not just focusing on one piece of the puzzle. It's all of these things that we've got to do to reduce our child's symptoms naturally. It's that diet, it's that reducing that inflammation, it's building that family relationship and connection, it's helping them emotionally, which is what you're talking about today.
Yeah.
So
Making sure their tanks are full.
yeah.
Connection means their tanks are full.
Yeah.
Healthy
Well, do you
tanks,
want to
their love
talk a
tank.
little bit about that
Yeah.
the tanks being full? What does that mean?
Well, it's when we think about, that we call it the love tank, is thinking about, are they on empty? Have they had enough connection? And children who experience ADHD, there's lots of amazing research to show they're quite hypersensitive to emotional states, and they can drain that love tank really quickly, especially if they're spending most of the day in inflammation and in hyperarousal. Think about it, they're on overdrive, right? So they're going to burn through fuel a lot quicker than other children.
Definitely.
So they're burning through the love fuel, they're burning through the relationship fuel. They also often receive a lot of negative feedback about their behaviors, even if it's unintentional. They're often being told how to be better. So it really drains their tank. So thinking about how can we make sure their tank is full as much as possible so they don't get to empty, because empty means even more tricky responses and behaviors from them. Yeah.
Definitely. But also, as I read somewhere, I think that kids with ADHD receive, 20,000 more negative comments. Is it in a lifetime or in a year? I can't remember which one it was. It's a very big difference, but it's huge, and they need that filled up. Look, that was amazing insight for you from you. So I, even just I know this, I do this in my own home, but just to hear that and just to reaffirm it, it also just, reaffirms in myself that, sometimes I get angry at my kids, but when I get angry, they react more. But if I am calm, it is much more peaceful. That was fantastic. We're going to go on to the next one, and that was from Barati, and she asked, I reward my son with 20 minutes of video game time after school if he stays in the green zone at school. Every day when I tell him time is up, he says 5 more minutes, or I'm in the middle of a game, or it kicked me out. What do I do? How do I get him to eat at the table without electronics? I think this is a two-part thing. It's always an argument. By the way, single mum here, and my son is 9 years old.
Okay. And so I'm mindful already just from saying that single mums are the one parent resource in the home. So leading on to what we were just, or following up from what we were just saying as well, Dana, is making sure our tanks are full, because if we've got to be a resource for our children, so that can be even more exhausting if we're on empty as well. I guess that even though that's a two-part question, Dana, it does sound a little bit like the bottom kind of theme might be around how do you actually set limits and boundaries with children who experience ADHD when that's really tricky, and we know they might push back, they're going to negotiate, or putting in a limit or boundary can sometimes feel really daunting for a parent when they've experienced that child as moving into a meltdown really quickly, or moving into screaming and yelling really quickly. So sometimes we might, as parents, stay kind of over here in the safe zone or the green zone ourselves, going, oh, if I put in this limit, is this going to end with a meltdown? And that requires a lot of effort, especially at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night when you're trying to do dinner.
Yes.
So I guess the first part, though, around video game, I'm assuming the green zone at school means they've done well, they've made positive choices.
Yes.
So, that kind of cause and effect sounds like you're trying to teach your 9-year-old there around, if you do really well at school, make positive choices, you reward with some video game time. I do wonder about the 20 minutes maybe being such a short little period of time. He might feel like he's just getting into it, and then it's really hard to come back. So I wonder if even just 20 from a practical perspective, is 20 minutes every day maybe too overwhelming and too tricky for him to just manage those little 20 minutes without having a good chunk, but also you don't want to have an hour screen time every day either.
Yes.
Which is really hard. So there's some sort of balance about finding out what's best for your family. In terms of setting the limit, though, and he is going to negotiate, and every kid would, probably ADHD or not, 5 more minutes. How do you sit in that parenting boundary and limit, regardless of what the response might be? And that's the tough bit. So actually going, remember, we actually negotiated, the expectation is that it's 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and it's actually time to shut off the game. Same thing, naming the feeling. I know it's really hard to stop the game. It must feel really disappointing that I'm asking you to stop the game. So I can see you're having fun and you're enjoying it, but it's time to turn off the game. So naming the feeling and their experience of how hard it is to actually shut off that game, really important piece of the puzzle before you put in the limit. So whether that be, yep, I can see it's not fair. It must feel so unfair that I'm making you turn off the game. We still need to turn off the game. And whether that be, I've done with children in groups where they find it really hard, and I'll actually say, you've got two options, kiddo. You can make the positive choice to turn off the game yourself, or I might actually have to come and turn it off for you, and over time, eventually they'll go, okay, I'll turn it off because I know the expectation. And for the parent who's asked this question, it might be that for a little while, there is some serious pushback and meltdowns. And how do you be prepared for that? So if the screaming, starts, or the big feeling starts, how do you ride the wave of the big feeling without getting into a power struggle about the video game? But it's actually going, okay, now we're riding a big feeling. Whew, we're really angry. Oh, we've thrown the game controller across the room. That's not safe. But, I still need you to get off the game. That's what we talked about. So you're still holding that calm parenting voice as you can. The end result is that he still has to get off the game. Yeah. So it's how to, that parenting limit with lots of empathy, and knowing that you might have to ride some meltdowns for a little while. And I don't know, you're
that consistency, isn't it?
But it's going every day. If you keep showing up in the same way as a parent with the same parenting response, your little one will go, okay, mum's actually serious. And it's as simple as using the language sometimes going, I know, buddy, the parents are in charge. Mum's in charge. I've said that the adults are in charge, and that's really hard. We make the rules sometimes, and then you can add, something that supports that relationship co-regulation. Why don't we help, cook dinner together? Or why don't we read a story together tonight, and spend time together? May or may not work. And some of this, doesn't work for every child every time, because one night you might get a meltdown, the next night it might work fine. But as you can notice that if you keep showing up in the same way as the parent consistently,
then they understand the
expectations. And they start to understand those.
What are your thoughts on, and I'm going to go on a tangent here, but what are your thoughts on, so, if you're showing up that way and they're continuing to throw a meltdown, what is the, natural consequences? If they continue showing up that way and that meltdown, does that mean that maybe tomorrow that you can't have that arrangement, that reward, or is that punishment? What is that? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a interesting question, because my initial thoughts were, I actually wonder if even the reward for this is this even helpful for him. So it had me thinking about, maybe it's more every second or third day and he gets, I don't know, a little bit longer of time, or maybe it's just a particular block of days and not on other days. And the natural consequence might be, well, actually, maybe tomorrow we try a night without video games, so it's not a battle every night, because if you're doing 20 minutes every night, then it's a battle every night as well, potentially. It is that fine line about going, what's punishment? And often children with ADHD, Dana, sometimes don't have that concrete cause and effect quite yet. So that's why a lot of parents go, but I've tried consequences, I've tried punishment, it's just not working. It's thinking about what might be more of a natural one. And that might look like, maybe tomorrow we try it without video games. And instead of it feeling like a punishment of like, you're never getting video games, or tomorrow, no video games for you, it's like, actually tomorrow, why don't we try something that we do together and we play together? So we talk about reward as connection and relationship reward, which
I love that.
Yeah, your 9-year-old boy is not going to maybe be super thrilled with that first, but you'd be surprised once they start going, oh, this is craft day with mom, or I get 20 minutes. And
I will go down on another tangent. Kids with ADHD, they seek that dopamine hit, and that video game provides them that dopamine hit. And the more dopamine hit you get from that video game, the more you need. And so having that every single day is actually contributing to that addiction kind of.
Yeah, well, it's the arousal. It keeps them in that hyper arousal state as well. So
Yeah.
he's moving into the video game. We talk about it, if we're talking about arousal states physiologically, we spoke earlier about wanting to
Yes.
teach self-regulation and emotional regulation. That's what, this is all about. Video games, TV, those sorts of things, that's auto-regulation. We talk about it. That's not actually deep self-regulation. So for him, he's getting that dopamine hit, regulates his emotions in his body, he gets hyper-focused into it. And then actually to turn off the TV or the video game becomes quite activating, quite triggering, because it's like, I don't know how to be in my body without the video game. I don't know how to focus. How am I going to distract myself? Whatever that looks like for each individual child. Yeah. So maybe every day might be a little bit too much for him to navigate moving in and out of with limits.
Look, I know in my family, we sometimes have, an electronics break, and sometimes it is the best thing. The first few days are terrible, but after that, all of a sudden this peace comes over the house. And we do it, 2 weeks at a time. And really, probably at the end of the day, the reason that we as parents, or a lot of other people as parents as well, they do it for the rest, because it's so tiring having a kid with ADHD. Well, hopefully that is, Bharati, that can give you enough.
Start with.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to move on to the next question from Tatiana. She asks, she has an ADHD girl who's 15, and she wants to know how to create a routine. She doesn't use the tools that the mum gives her, and she doesn't know if it's the teen in her or the ADHD, which is really hard, because I know, yeah, totally. I know when you've got a kid with ADHD, you hyper focus on all of these things. Is this normal, or is this ADHD?
Yeah. And it might be a little bit of both for a 15-year-old. How to get her to follow a routine. I think the first thing that comes to mind is, how do you support, I guess, when you're working with teenagers who experience ADHD, in order for them, whether that be, the following the food and the nutrition and the diet, or a routine or predictability, is they have to have some level of ownership or involvement, and it has to have some meaning to them. Otherwise it's like, no, I can't do it. It's like, you have to get them on board in some way.
Agreed, 1,000%.
So if we're just coming to them and going, hey, here's your routine, what do you think? Try this tool, this is really great. Or, hey, try this food. If they're not even a little on board or understand around why they're doing it, why it's important to do it, how it might help them, be more focused and calm in their body, how it might help them make better friends or have less big feelings, have some kind of logic around why they're doing it. So we almost have to invite them in and sell it to them in a little way. And it might be the same. I think it's the same for the routine or the food stuff as well. We've got to have teenagers on board, or it's like, they're very unlikely to follow it. So I wonder if a tool for your 15-year-old, Tatiana, has she been involved in the process of developing the routine? Whether that be sitting together and getting her to give you some ideas around what's a routine that will be helpful for her, you sharing some ideas. Thing with adolescents as well is you almost have to strategically make them think it's their idea.
Yeah.
So putting ideas out there around, I wonder, do you think this would help you? Rather than going, hey, I think this would be good for you. And whether that be she actually, if she's a creative kid, making something tangible, colorful, get her to be involved in it, drawing it out, whether it goes on the fridge or in her bedroom. Is she part of the process? Yeah. And the second bit had me thinking about, does she have a deep understanding of why the routine is important? Does she think it's important, or does she just think, or does mum just think it's important?
Yes. And I'm going to, again, go on a little bit of a tangent. We'll come back to what you were going to say there. But it is so true. When you know the why, you're more likely to follow through. And that's exactly the same with what we teach in diet. The first thing that we look at in the program is why you are making these changes. And so she's 15, she's an adult, or almost an adult. And the brain's not quite there yet, but so important. Sorry, I completely cut you off. So
no, I think that's absolutely it. Is how do we invite her into a conversation around why we think it's important, why you think it's important for her as her mom, saying, and putting out things like, this will really help you focus on your studies and make sure that your due dates for things. It might be really important because it's going to help you show up on time for your classes or whatever the routine is about, or it's going to help you get out of bed better in the morning, because I know that getting out of bed's really tough, or I know that going to sleep's really tough. Is it a home routine? Is it bedtime, morning, whatever the routine is? I'm not sure if the question said, Donna, but I think regardless is having that chat around, does she have some meaning around why this is going to be helpful for her? The other thing with teenagers is lots and lots of compassion and empathy, because often teenagers, from a developmental perspective, they always feel misunderstood, or they're heightened in emotions anyway. I don't know if many people know about the adolescent brain, but that frontal lobe cortex, we say, that's in charge of reasoning, problem solving, decision making, it's under construction from like age 13 to 20. So it comes in and offline.
Construction zone.
Yeah. So it's like heightened emotions to begin with. You add ADHD based symptoms on top of that. There's probably an extra layer of sensitivity and emotion for her. So using lots of compassion and deeply listening to her. So when she does respond, I don't think I need a routine because I can get out of bed, whatever she comes back at you with, actually deeply listen rather than be waiting to respond, be waiting to have the next way to try to convince her, but actually maybe deeply listening. And you might already be doing this, Tatiana, but just going, okay, so it sounds like you think you can get out of bed on your own. Okay, well, why don't we try it your way for a couple of days? And don't be afraid to sometimes let teenagers make their own mistakes for a couple of days, whether that be food. I think we've talked about it in the coaching calls. Okay, so you ate that pizza, and now you've had a really rough day and you've had some really big emotions. How do you feel? You feel sluggish in your body. How else are you feeling? And using it as teaching moments. Okay, do you want to try again going back onto the diet that we need to do? Or should we try bits of the routine I've suggested?
Yeah, it's like if she doesn't get up in the morning, she misses
natural consequence.
She misses first period at school. And what is the consequence from that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that might be really hard as a parent to sit and watch some of those moments. But I think that really deep empathetic listening, making sure she walks away from those conversations feeling really heard, even if you don't agree with her as a mom, going, I know what she needs to do for routine. We know what's best for our kids at times. I think it's probably just starting with a bit of that and playing.
I love this, Ashley. Honestly, I could sit here and talk with you all day long. Let's move on. Kim, she asks, how do you help an 8-year-old with keeping calm while in school and dealing with friends?
Oh, Bubba, sounds like he's having a tricky time with social interactions. The thing with school, in my experience working with parents, it's sometimes sitting in what are the bits that are in your control as a parent, and what are the bits that sometimes are out of your control and you actually can't help at school because we can't be there with them all day. So thinking about what are the things that you can do at home with your 8-year-old son to support his experience of learning emotion regulation, self-regulation, and calmness and stillness. And that will flow on into the effect of better social interactions. But thinking about what are the aspects of emotional regulation that you can support at home and teach him. So again, what are those hyperarousal based, body-based, sensory-based activities, feelings coaching that you can implement at home to support him to have a better understanding of what happens in his body when he's frustrated. And then you can logically connect it to, okay, so when your friend doesn't let you play, okay, you get that frustrated feeling. What does it have you doing? Can you count to 10 when you're at school? So there might be some teaching activities that you can encourage him to do at school, but I guess it's first practicing them at home, supporting him in whether that be, so when it's hyperarousal, you want to support longer exhales. So like getting them to have an extra out breath. And interestingly, I've noticed for kids with ADHD, you'll see they often inhale really deeply up here, and it actually contributes to more arousal. So we want to support them to breathe into their belly button slowly, but have a longer exhale. Whether he needs to give himself his own little hand massage at school, like what are the practical things he can do? doing mindfulness at home, little bits of meditation or yoga poses at home that support a more calm body. Things for ADHD, like having legs up the wall. I don't know if you know that one. So the back is on the ground or the bed, legs are up the wall and their feet are up in the air. Is a nice one. Downward dog, anything that's like has them hanging upside down. Inversions are really good for hyperarousal states. Anything that's
would be
grounding.
quite funny, him being at school and then all of a sudden he's feeling the emotion and he drops down into downward dog.
Or go at recess, go hang from, what do we say, call them the monkey bars still there in America?
We call them monkey bars in Australia, but I'm in America. I don't know if they're called what are they called? Does anyone drop in the comments like what are those, the bar? Are they just called the bars? Like the bars? We call them monkey bars in Australia.
Yeah. So, anything that gets him to, really encourage a calm body and help him practice at home, you'll notice that with time, he'll start to use them at school on his own as well, with some encouragement.
Yeah, Valerie's saying it is monkey bars. So yeah,
cross-cultural. And I guess the other thing is around the social interaction. So if there's a sibling at home, or at, in home environment, or on the weekends when he's interacting with peers, getting him to practice positive social interactions that you might not be able to be doing at school, but where are the bits that you as a parent can do in different opportunities. So when you notice really great sharing, be really positive. Wow, I noticed that you just asked for that. You didn't snatch, or I noticed that you're really calm in your body right now. I noticed look how focused you are right now. Or wow, what great cooperation. You just did great taking turns with your brother. So noticing the positive things so he can have this is taking turns and this feels good when I get praised for it. And noticing when he's not doing great, but it's how you deliver it. Oh, I noticed that we just grabbed from your brother. Was it really hard to wait? Rewind. Let's try that interaction again.
Love it.
We talk a lot about pause, rewind, and you can bring a playfulness with it. It's like, whoa. Did I just see some grabbing? Yeah, it's really hard to wait our turn, isn't it? Yeah, but can we try that interaction again? And this time, I'm wondering if you can say, Johnny, can I please have that? Or it's my turn now. So you might actually encourage the rewind, redo the interaction, but you might have to demonstrate to your child what you want the interaction to look like. What's the expectation? Is it going, can I have that now, please? Or, we might need to sit calmly and wait our turn. Okay, now it's your turn. Is anyone,
I want to yell out to the people watching, and there's quite a lot of people watching, and thank you for everyone telling me that it was monkey bars. But is anyone else wanting an Ashley in their pocket at home when they're going through these situations? All of these tips are just absolutely amazing, Ashley. I mean, honestly, they're awesome. Definitely everything that you're giving is so beneficial. The one thing I will say with interactions with kids at school, I find, and I hear it time and time again with people that have gone through our program, and we've reduced that inflammation in the body and the brain and the gut. All of a sudden, all of these little social interactions improve as well, because they're not as much in that fight or flight.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They're not in
that. So the more we can, I was going to say, the more we can bring them back into, we talk about that window of tolerance, the more they're able to have smooth sailing and regulate their body, because they're not dealing with the level of inflammation that they have when they're having foods that exacerbate ADHD-based symptoms.
Yeah.
I was actually reading a book last night, Donna, that talks about some research coming up around kids who've been given that diagnosis of ADHD are much more susceptible to intolerances, allergies, cold and flu, suppressed immune system because of the level of inflammation. They're just hypersensitive. So they get inflamed a lot quicker than other children.
1,000%. You're preaching to you're preaching to my heart right here, Ashley. You got to tell me the name of that book. But that is definitely one of the things that I share a lot, is that, you know, even with food allergies, there is such a greater risk of food allergies in kids that have ADHD compared to those of the general population. So it's a really, really good point. I was having a conversation with a family that went through our program, and she was saying that she went to parent-teacher interviews, and, you know, in the prior years, her child didn't really have any friends. And she went to the parent-teacher interview, and the teacher's like, you know, he's so popular, he has so many friends. And the mum was just blown away, because they've made all of these wonderful changes, and her son now has friends.
Friendships.
It's
beautiful,
doesn't it? Yeah, it just sings to your heart. Okay, so we're going to go. We've got a couple more questions, and then we're going to pop over to the Facebook group and see if there's any other questions that people have. And I think the last 4 questions kind of all tie in together. We had Key ask them. We also had Julia ask them. So how do you handle lying? How do you handle screaming? How do you handle fighting? And how do you handle impulsiveness? So kind of think that they all sort of lump together in a way.
Yeah, a few behaviors there. So, and hopefully some of what we spoke about at the beginning will start to kind of filter into this answer as well. So that responsive, positive parenting approach that uses those concepts of name it to tame it, which is naming the feeling out loud, noticing behavior with a calm or even just a neutral parenting voice, lots of empathy, you know, that tuning in and setting the parenting limit. So the approach for these behaviors will virtually be the same. It's still that foundational, responsive, positive parenting approach. And the screaming, fighting, impulsiveness for me really sits again in that hyperarousal and in that fight flight based survival mode we talk about. It's really heightened when they're screaming and fighting. The lid is blown. For those of you who know the flip your lid,
most people won't.
Some of you might not.
Why don't you go ahead and explain it?
My little brain there. So Dan Siegel has coined this kind of concept around flip your lid. So that's your brain stem. The thumb there is the amygdala, which is in charge of the emotion center. And then the top bit here being the frontal lobe cortex I spoke about earlier, which is in charge of logic, reasoning, decision-making, problem solving, all the things that we need kids to have online if we want them to make positive choices. But for kids who experience ADHD, who are in hyperarousal and inflammation most of the day, that lid is like gone. So that top part of the brain is offline, and they're often operating from an emotional part of the brain a lot of the time, which is why parents talk about it's so hard to try to get them to do what I want them to do when they're emotional. You know, when we're talking logic to them, we're trying to reason and negotiate, but that doesn't work.
Out the other.
You know, parents are like, oh, I just want to, you know, throttle, but because it's emotion, and they actually don't have that part of their brain switched on to understand the decision-making or the problem-solving technique you're trying to give them. We can also talk about it as the concept of upstairs brain, downstairs brain. You know, how do we get their upstairs brain back online? And there's no point in trying to talk to it if it's gone. So we actually need to talk to the emotion part of their brain first. We have to tune into that if we want them to bring that online. You know, we have to go, as I mentioned earlier, we have to name that emotion or guess it out loud, wonder it. And we know that children will often tell you if you're wrong. If you go, oh, I can see you're angry. No, I'm not angry. You know, or it's like, oh, well, your fists clenched are telling me otherwise. Maybe you're frustrated, or maybe you're actually really disappointed, or maybe you feel like it's unfair. So it's talking to the emotion part of the brain and then gently trying to soothe them to bring back on the front part of the brain. And being mindful, we have that brain too. So when you're a parent and you're like, oh, kids' lids flipped, they're emotional, and we've tried, oh, now our lids flipped and now everybody's dysregulated. So we've got to bring on our lid before we can try to soothe their lid. With the screaming and fighting, sometimes it's riding that wave. So just talking to that part of the brain, and this might not come back online for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 30 minutes. It might take a couple hours. Sometimes kids with ADHD have to have those big meltdowns and exhaust themselves. And then we move in to help kind of regulate and use teaching moments. And that's really exhausting for parents. Like you said, if you're, you're using your resource to calm them down. Screaming and fighting, if we think about it from the hyperarousal, lid is flipped, they're in survival mode. So their body and their nervous system has told them that they're not safe. If they're in fight mode and they're now kicking, screaming, hitting, they might be safe environmentally, but inside their body goes, no, I'm not okay. I'm out of control. I'm not safe. Their nervous system has put them into fight mode. So they actually feel completely dysregulated, activated, whatever you want to call it, but they're just, they feel out of control. And you'll often see then kids trying to anchor themselves into control, or anchor themselves into safety, through control. So you see children trying to control the situation, trying to control the relationship, trying to control the interaction, because they're going, I just trying to make myself feel okay and safe again and regulate my body. And that's the only resource I know how. So when we have a deeper understanding done of why children are behaving the way they are, so I was thinking about what's the function of the behavior, what's underneath this behavior? Look past the screaming and the fighting or the impulsiveness. Okay, what's underneath it? It's fight mode. It's an activated nervous system. It's him feeling unsafe. It's overwhelming distress that he doesn't or she doesn't know what to do with. That can help us as parents shift into more empathy to help us stay more neutral, to be put on our parenting brain that they need. With lying, I almost want to separate that one out, Dana, because lying, I always think about having a slightly different functioning, or it can. Lying can be around trying to control the situation, but lying can also be highly related to a shame response. And earlier we spoke about how children with ADHD receive a lot of negative input and feedback. They're often always in trouble at school, or they're always being told how to do things differently or better or no. And over time, children can start to develop an internalized experience of shame. So they start to think that they're bad or they're stupid. And a lot of parents we talk about in your program, Donna, say, my kid comes to me and goes, I'm dumb, I'm stupid, I'm not good enough. Or, I can't do it. And they go really negative really quickly, because over time they have gone, oh, maybe I'm bad, versus guilt, which is a normative child developmental behavior, which is my behavior is not good. Versus I'm not good. Yes. So lying can be a mechanism to just avoid feeling shame. So we call it the shield of shame. So if your child gets triggered into shame, like they can't finish their homework because they don't understand it, or they've made a mistake, or they have grabbed that toy from their brother and they know they're going to get in trouble, or they've had a big meltdown, now they feel bad about it because they've stressed out mom and dad, that they'll move into the shield of shame. And the behaviors around that is lying, denying that it happened, rage and anger, interestingly as well, and that kind of a shutdown, I didn't do it, lying, denying, rage kind of responses that go, I just need to avoid feeling bad about myself, so I'm going to lie. Even though I've just seen you snatch that toy. I didn't snatch it. I just noticed that you did. But for them, at all costs, they have to avoid feeling shame because it's too painful. I don't know does that make sense to some people?
It totally makes sense. But when you look at it from the point of shame, 1,000% it makes sense. We think that they're lying because they just don't want to get into trouble. But if we look at it and go, they're feeling shame for some reason, and they're trying to avoid that feeling.
Yeah. And they'll blame as well as another behavior. So the lying blame, it's like, oh no, my brother did it. No, actually, I just saw you did it.
Yeah.
So they'll blame, or they'll minimize, like it wasn't that bad, or I didn't mean to do so. Yeah. It's just kind of being mindful around what might be the function of the lying, which can also, again, help us as parents move more into empathy, so we can respond to a more neutral space than a frustrated space around why is my child lying. How to deal with it is probably a whole nother
topic that we can have on another day.
Yeah, but
do you have any little tips?
I think with the lying is, just keep embedding the same concepts we've talked around, as that name it to tame it, or connection before correction. So connecting in relationship and empathy before correcting behavior. Like, I noticed that it was, you you found it hard to tell the truth. Or some kids will anchor in their lie and they just won't budge from it. And it's don't avoid the power struggle by trying to get them to admit they're lying and just go, I see it a bit differently, but I can hear that it's really hard for you right now and you're having a tough day or you're feeling really frustrated, and just leave it at that, and whatever limit you might set still stays the same. But sometimes avoid just getting in that trap of going, I know you're lying, and unless you tell me the truth, we're not budging.
Ashley, amazing. Seriously, this has been phenomenal. Like the tips that you've shared are, absolutely fantastic. We are like going to go over to the comments, and I'll see if I can get to them, because I always, whenever I go there, I can never see the most recent. So I'm just going to go and see if I can see if anyone's got any comments or questions. There are a lot of people saying that I'll take an Ashley in my pocket. So that's great. I can only see 4 comments. So I'm going to try and work out, how do I see all of the questions? And this happened last time. So I am please bear with me. If you've got any questions for Ashley, drop them below in the comments. If we can't, for some reason, see them, which at the moment I am struggling to find them, we will come back and we will answer them in response to your post, but just give me a second. I am trying to get to them. No, I can't. I can only bring up 4 comments, but there's like 25, 30 comments in there. So for some reason, Facebook's not letting me go to the most recent. So guys, there's like lots of people watching as well. And so I'm sorry, but if you do have questions, pop them below and we can always come back and answer them. So maybe we need to cut it there, Ashley. And look, you can always come back for another visit to address some of those other questions. But thank you for joining me today. I think I can speak for all of us and say that we have gleaned so much information from you about children.
Somewhere to start.
Somewhere to start, definitely. Now, if anyone today listening needs some additional support, we've actually teamed up with Ashley to create a program specifically for parents of children with ADHD, giving you tips and tricks and the tools that we've talked about today, shield of shame, all of that sort of stuff, flip your lid, that you need to parent a child that is neurodiverse with ADHD, anxiety, all of those similar things. So I'm going to drop a link to more information about that program. It's a Jumpstart for Parenting program. I can see a comment from Mary. I'm going to just drop that quickly below. So if anyone wants to take a look at that, it's just a Jumpstart program. It's a short, how many modules is it?
I want to say 5 or 6.
5 or 6.
There's a little mini taster of what the next one will be.
Definitely. So you can find out more exactly what modules are in that if you click that link. But Mary's asking how to help my son with low self-esteem. He sees his friends doing better at school and athletics better and easier than him. That's a really good question, Mary, and I'm sorry that you're suffering with that.
Yeah, that is tough. And I think some of that, is it Mary?
Yes.
I'd connect back to the shame conversation we just had. So low self-esteem can sometimes be around that. I don't feel good enough. I can see others are succeeding and I can't get there enough. And sometimes that can be really thick for kids and a really heavy weight. So, one thing you might practice at home is noticing out loud when he is doing something really wonderful, beautiful, great, and using a lot of that positivity in your home around, wow, I noticed that, you worked really hard at your homework today. So even if he's not, succeeding grade-wise at the same as his peers, but you can pick up on things that he's doing really well. You can have conversations around how kids are all do well at different things. So he might be amazing at soccer or amazing at creating Lego or whatever his strengths are. And his friends might be really great at that. And that doesn't mean he's any less good than they are, those types of conversations. There's a great book, Donna, called Giraffes Can't Dance, that talks about
giraffes can't dance.
Giraffes can't dance. for some of the younger children, and just some of those conversations around, what they can't be good at everything, and that's okay. And just finding the positivity where you can, little noticings, even if you write them down in post-it notes or little certificates, and you once a week. And the Jumpstart Parenting Program talks actually a lot about this type of parenting approach around the positivity and the little things you can do in the home, in your relationship with children, to build up confidence, self-esteem, mastery over new skills in a way that helps them feel much better about who they are.
And filling up that cup, isn't it? Filling up that bucket, boosting up that self-esteem and showing them, what they do well. Because sometimes, when they receive all of those negative messages and feedback, it's super hard to weed through all those weeds and see all the good things. And so that's our job, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. What fills up his bucket, thinking about that as well.
Definitely. We have another question that's popped up from Sarah saying, how can I make homework time not a battle? It will take 3 hours for something that should take 10 minutes. It's not a lack of knowledge.
Yeah, a battle. I mean, I guess I'd like to know a little bit more around what is the battle, what's tricky. Is it about his focus? Is it about him not finding it hard to receive help from you? Are you the best person to do homework with them? Sometimes it's an emotionally explosive space. Is it hard for him to sit still? How's he presenting at homework time? What makes it tricky for him to sit? I'm sorry, was it a boy? I'm saying him.
Don't know.
So what makes it hard for the child to sit and do the homework? Is it the interactions? Is it the work itself? Does the child feel like they can't concentrate? Do they feel like they don't get it? Are they exhausted from the day? Seeing about what are all the variables that might contribute to making homework a battle. And as the parent, do you notice really reflecting and looking at, how am I interacting in the battle? Am I entering a power struggle that I need to? Where do I need to set the limits but use a lot of empathy? Where can I budge? Where do I pick my battles? It'd probably be a little bit more that might need to be flushed out around what's going on in that homework time.
I'll say, one of the common themes that we talk about a lot is there's a couple of things, especially with kids with ADHD. They've had a big day at school. Okay. So sometimes filling their belly, getting that blood sugar regulation up is super important. Sometimes letting them let out all of their energy and then coming in to do it. Sometimes picking a different place than home to do the homework. When you're at home and it's just the two of you, that battle can occur. But if you're at the library or, even out of outside, the park,
I was like, shift the energy, especially now if there's a particular space that this parent's been doing homework. I would say now shift the energy, and maybe you need to move the homework space, change it up. And as you said, Dana, filling their bellies, getting them to run around outside, kick a ball, jump on the trampoline. Remember, they're in hyperarousal. We almost want to match that energy state first and then slowly bring them down. Rather than going, they're exhausted from school, they're up here, and now we want them to concentrate on homework. And it's like, what?
I think that's a tough one. Yeah, that is. Well, Ashley, we can't keep you too long from your little bubba that's probably having a nap and ready to wake up.
Thank you.
So for guys, anyone listening today, as I mentioned, and you need that additional support, I've dropped that link to the ADHD Thrive Jumpstart for Parenting program in the comments below. I'll also put it in the title as well. But Ashley, this has been spectacular. You are amazing. We love you. We are so glad that you're back from maternity leave, but we love who's been stepping in as well while you've been on maternity leave.
Well, thank you for having me. And thanks to all the parents who sent in their questions and continuing to show up and ask questions. And it's great to be back.
Right. Well, thanks everyone. Hope you enjoyed today, and we'll be back soon with another expert interview. So take care and we'll talk to you soon.